Welcome, Gracefully Graying viewers, once again. Today, we are thrilled again to have attorney Steve Malach from Lipson Neilson, the multi-state law firm, talking about avoiding probate court with an exclamation point. So, Steve, welcome to Gracefully Graying.
Thanks for having me back, and I hope I can give your listeners some education on these areas.
Okay, and as you can see, I've added an exclamation point to that title, Avoiding Probate Court. Tell us kind of generally, and it's probably not general, but how do family issues end up in probate court?
Well, first and foremost, the families end up in probate court because of lack of planning ahead of time. Remarkable how you can go to see a lawyer, as we all know, and do estate plans, including trusts, wills, powers of attorney, which many lawyers do, and the public knows about these things. Remarkably, people don't all do that. And they procrastinate, whether it's cost, they don't want to face their mortality, various reasons, or they're too young, because young people under age 18 or young marrieds think they're going to live forever and never get sick, so why do they need this? Those are the instances where it's kind of like life insurance. You take it out. I've had life insurance my whole life. I'm alive. I paid for it, but it's there just in case. Same is true for estate planning. And God forbid you don't take precautions and do some planning ahead of time, you end up in probate court in various scenarios.
Okay, and our previous interview was all about estate planning and the importance of it, and all the issues that come up in that, and the that really you can do that at any age, which you had suggested. The role of probate court and incapacitated adults. Talk to us about that, and where there's no previously signed powers of attorney, tell us what happens with that if there's nothing that.
Well, first of all, people have the misconception that probate only deals with people who passed away. Not true. Probate court also deals with minors or incapacitated adults, as the case may be. For purposes of this topic, I'm going to focus more on the incapacitated adults.
Right, as it relates to Gracefully Graying, the 50 and over crowd, and their parents who may have dementia, Alzheimer's, who for, a myriad of reasons need help. Like they just can't do this on their own. So go ahead and explain some of that, if you would.
3/4 of the probate cases involve incapacitated, oftentimes Alzheimer's and dementia, which is prevalent more now than ever in our world.
Mm-hmm.
And people have not prepared for that. They're in their 80s, they're in their 90s, and they haven't set forth who's to take care of their affairs. And now they're admitted to a hospital or a rehab center or assisted living. And clearly they don't have capacity to sign a contract or commit to anything. And absent a document empowering someone to do that, you have to go to probate court and file for guardianship. If they have assets and income, you got to file for conservatorship. You got to wait for a hearing. Some days of late during COVID, it's been by Zoom. Maybe we'll go back to in-person like it was before. My wild guess there'll be a hybrid of that going on in the future. And now you have a court, a judge who doesn't know your family, who really doesn't know your personality, who probably will never even meet you, deciding who's going to be in charge and what's going to happen. And now you've entered a public sector. It's a government. And just like any other government, it's open to the public. And now what you thought and would want to keep private is no longer private. So not only are you in the court system, which is a delay, which is compliance, which is costly, which is time consuming, you're also in an arena where your next door neighbor or your ex-wife or anybody else can take a look-see and see what's going on with your stuff.
Yeah.
The other part of probate, when it comes to incapacitated people, even if they have a plan, and I always have a few of these, the kids are fighting. The kids are accusing one another of taking advantage of the parent. The one empowered by the document that the parent did prepare is mismanaging, is not being transparent, is not communicating with their siblings. You also have that going on in probate court as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So they could have all the documents in place. There could be one kid whose name is on it, but another kid might be contesting that.
It doesn't happen a lot. I
Mhm.
would say 90, 95% of the time, what client plans, what they sign for happens. I only hear about the problems though, and I have a desk full of them. So yeah, it can happen, and it does happen. Now, not only do you have all the other issues I mentioned about probate, now you have significant expense because everybody's lawyered up, and
Mhm.
and the court system is slow. It could be a year or two to sort all that out, or longer. I've had cases go 4 or 5 years on living probates, I call them. Kids fighting about the money, kids fighting about visitation with their mom
Yeah.
or dad, mismanagement of medical care, not giving the right medication, etc.
Right. What is undue influence? Explain to our viewers what undue influence is.
Undue influence is the arena where a person is integrally involved in another person's lawyering, estate planning. They're in the room, they drive them there, they pay for it. They do as much, if not more, talking than the person who's signing the documents. And there's an infirmity involved. Maybe it's physical, maybe it's mental, maybe it's coercion, it's a
Oh,
caretaker. It doesn't even need to be a family member. I've had several caretaker cases where the caretaker shuffled the older person off to a lawyer, made themselves in charge, made themselves a beneficiary, all done in secret. Nobody knows about it till things start to unravel. And now you have the legal word is a shitstorm in a court system where this undue influence bubbles to the surface. You have to have doctors testifying that the individual was vulnerable, that could be
right.
subject
But
to.
let me ask you, I'm going to jump in here. You as the lawyer, does a red flag go up? Like, hey, what's going on here?
If I'm doing an estate plan and I smell undue influence, and I think I know what that is these days,
Mhm.
I'll politely let the client know I can't help them. I'm
Okay.
not going to get into an accusation because I haven't talked to any of the kids. I'm not involved, related to the family members, but I'm not going to expose myself or my firm to involvement down the line, being a
Right.
part of clear undue influence unfolding in front of my very eyes. I can't say it happens often. I'll
Mhm.
tell you this. I've probably taken a dozen or 20 depositions of lawyers who went and did that, who didn't walk away. And after the deposition was done, they all look at me, everyone, they all say the same thing. Am I getting sued? I really messed this up, didn't I? I go,
Ooh.
well, I'm not here to get you sued. I'm here
Mhm.
to follow through on some wishes, but yeah, you messed up. You need to
Mhm.
see the red signs. You need to see the flags, and you need to
Right.
know when to walk away or take preventative measures. I get calls from the children wanting to know about their parents' estate plan while they have dementia. I go, well, I don't have my client can't give authority. It's a secret. They're not telling you. Neither am I.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, that's tricky. That's tricky. Yeah. Let me ask you about, and I don't know how much you get involved in this, but if under some circumstances a grandparent is wanting to legally adopt their grandkids for whatever reason, I mean, do you
Sure.
get into that too? And
It,
what's the probate court's involvement in that?
most probate courts have a separate juvenile court division. Most of them, not all, depending on what county and what state we're talking about. The probate court for sure has jurisdiction to adopt. Oftentimes, the prelude to adoption is determining that parental rights of the natural mother and natural father are terminated because there's no contact, because there's no support, because whereabouts are unknown.
Right.
And whereas years ago it was one thing, there's a lot of due process and protections to parents to make sure every effort is made to reach out to them, to know that their legal rights to a child are being terminated. Okay, to make sure. So that's a prelude to the adoption. And then the normal adoption process is making sure the proposed new parent or parents are qualified. There's home studies done, there's background checks verified, there's several hearings involved in that process. And even then, at the end, the parents still have plenty of chance and plenty of notice to change their mind, to come forward, to clean up their drug problems, to come
Yeah.
forward saying, I want to establish a relationship with my child. Absent them doing that, well, then the adoption goes through, a new birth certificate is created. By the way, adoptions aren't limited to just minor children. I've done them for adults as well.
Oh, really? Interesting. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. Huh. So it's like a, wow. Okay. Okay. The probate court's involvement in real estate matters and claims for possessions, you know, various types of lawsuits, right, can be started in probate court where families are fighting over possessions. Tell us about that.
Probate court has jurisdiction over the affairs of that person if they're alive, incapacitated, or passed away. That can include the sale or acquisition of real estate. That can include addressing creditor claims. That can include fights among the children for their rightful share. That can include, just finished a case where a personal representative of an estate, we had to file an eviction action because a child living with a parent wouldn't get out after the parent died. And they may have been a caretaker. I see why that would happen. Or they were down and out. The parents were still helping them out even if they were in their 60s or something.
Yeah.
But 3 months, 6 months, a year later, they're still living rent-free in a house. The other children have a stake in that house that needs to get sold.
Yeah.
And they just don't want to move. Well, then you're gonna do an eviction. Wrongful death claims. An auto accident happens, God forbid. The court has jurisdiction to deal with the filing of that, the resolution of that. So probate court can handle contract claims, disputes in the beneficiaries, business interests. It goes way beyond what you think it would because it's all encompassing, as it should be.
Right. Complicated, as life is complicated.
It's as complicated as sometimes there's two answers to that or observations. It's as complicated to the extent you haven't made a full and complete plan. It also complicated under the heading, well, things happen that you, like an auto accident, you couldn't plan for it, or Alzheimer's and you end up with problems, or medical malpractice and things you hit the lotto. I've had clients hit the lotto, I couldn't change it into the trust, they pass away, I got to probate that. How often does that happen to me, you, or your listeners? Well, not very often. No different than an auto accident. Or God forbid a medical malpractice. When it does happen, the probate court handles all of that as well.
Probate court fees, they vary from state to state? How does that work?
Well, I'll give you an example. When I first started practicing 40 some years ago, you could file in probate for $20 and open up an estate. Nowadays, it's $175 here in Michigan. About the same in Arizona. They also charge you from $5 to $12 to $15 for a sheet of paper called a certified copy, a letter of authority, for example, that has a seal on it. Kind of weird they charge that much for a single sheet of paper, but they can do that. You also have here in Michigan something pretty interesting. There's a 0.5% county tax on the gross value of the estate, gross value. And they're very diligent in verifying, seeing by bank records or tax records what the value of the real estate or the bank or the investment account is. And they're very diligent in collecting it, that 0.5% inventory fee. I learned one of the reasons they're so vigilant, believe it or not, is 2/5 of that fee goes to fund that local judge's retirement.
Really? Ooh.
Yes. So it's almost like the judges at the counter looking around to see who else can contribute legally to their pension. Now, the other 3/5 goes up to the state for whatever they do with it. But it's interesting, even though there's no death tax, if an estate is under several $1 million, and most of your listeners know that, most counties charge this percent to, again, in the case of Michigan at least, help fund the judge's retirement.
Wow. Okay. Things that we didn't know about probate court. Thanks for filling us in. So guess what? Our time is up. This was very valuable information to our viewers. We thank you, Steve Malach of Lipson Neilson, once again for joining us.
You're welcome. Your listeners are welcome to always reach out by phone. Here in Michigan, it's 248-593-5000. They can go online at lipsonneilson.com or our subsidiary, Center for Estate Planning, which is ceplawyers.com. I welcome their calls, their concerns, their issues. People call all the time. Maybe they don't become clients, but I'm here to give out the information just like we're doing today.
Yeah, no, that's great. So thanks. And thanks for joining us. We will have you back on again to share your expertise. And thank you to our Gracefully Graying viewers. Check out our website, gracefullygraying.com. Find us out on all social media platforms and on our YouTube channel. And we look forward to seeing you all again soon. Thanks again, Steve.
Thanks, Laura, for having me. Appreciate it.